Dolls have been part of human culture since the beginning, with one of the oldest ones found dating back to 200 BC. Today, they're mostly considered a child's toy, or they're collectibles. But throughout history, they have been used for so much more, such as art, religion, rituals for both good and bad intent, and in my case, just being terrifying. But can a doll be haunted? Horror movies love a haunted doll story, and some paranormal channels on YouTube all seem to have a haunted doll that you can just pretty much buy off of eBay. But is there any truth to any of these stories? From dolls that have inspired horror movies, such as Child's Play and Annabelle, to an island of dolls that is said to be possessed by the spirit of a little girl. In this multi-part episode, we are going to jump right into these stories and learn more about them. I'm Cody Lee, and this is Average Mustache Paranormal. This is the story of Robert the Doll. In the early 1900s, a young boy named Eugene Robert Otto, who everyone called Gene, was gifted a rare one-of-a-kind doll. Made in Germany, it was a cloth doll stuffed with a wood wool called Excelsior, and stood about 40 inches tall, and was dressed in a sailor's outfit. Now, who gave Eugene the doll? It changes with each legend. The more likely story was that Eugene's grandfather bought it for him while in Germany. But other stories say that it was a servant for the family that gave the doll to the boy. But however it got there, Eugene instantly became friends with the doll and named him Robert. And pretty much the two were just inseparable wherever they went. But the good times did not last that long with Robert. The first unexplainable and, to me personally, most terrifying story happened when Eugene was 10 years old. In the middle of the night, Eugene woke up to see Robert sitting at the edge of his bed staring at him. And if you've ever seen this doll's face, you'll understand why it's so terrifying. His mother was then awakened by the sound of his screams and sounds of furniture being slammed around the room. When his parents finally opened the door, he was sitting on his bed, curled into a ball, terrified. His room was trashed, and all he would say was, "Robert did it." And I'm sure to any horror movie fans that sounds pretty familiar. And after that night, things just went straight downhill. His parents would hear talking to Robert, but the responses were not in Eugene's voice. They were in a totally different voice. And one of the other most terrifying things he's ever done is his parents would hear giggling right behind them and see Robert running up the stairs. Not Eugene, but Robert. And this continued on throughout his childhood. Years later, Eugene moved out, became a well-known artist in his area, and after his parents died, he inherited the house and moved back in with his wife, Anne. And surprise, surprise, who did Eugene find in the attic but Robert? Anne was smart. Anne knew there was something up with this doll and hated him instantly. But it seems like as soon as Eugene saw Robert again, some weird spell came over him, and he decided Robert needed his own room in the attic. But Anne was clever. She locked that little bastard inside the attic so he couldn't get out. And that just seemed to make things a lot worse for everyone. Neighborhood children would see Robert staring at them through the attic window and just glare at them when they're playing. Visitors to the house would hear running around in the attic, growling, and sometimes even a sinister little giggle. After Eugene's death in 1974, a new family moved into the home. And while moving their stuff into the attic, their 10-year-old daughter found Robert. And she seemed to get the same impression Eugene did when he was 10. But then, skipping all slow, menacing build-up that he did with Eugene, the little girl told her parents that Robert wanted to hurt her. And she would scream every night and tell her parents that Robert was in the room. Finally, the family had enough and donated the doll to the East Mortello Fort, probably butchered that, museum, ridding themselves of that terrifying, horrifying looking doll and all of its paranormal shenanigans. But even being in a display case hasn't slowed him down. The museum staff have reported seeing him running around in the middle of the night, hearing him giggle. There are fingerprints on the inside of his display case even after they clean it. But what's really weird is after he was first donated to the museum, he seemed to have aged considerably after being taken out of the house. But after all the attention he's been getting, he has been looking younger and younger. Now, if you're planning on visiting this museum and seeing him, just make sure of one thing. Don't disrespect him, and ask for a picture before you take one. One of the most common things happening with him now is people disrespect or take a picture and bad luck follows him home. The car crashes, health issues, money issues. Whatever you did to Robert, he's getting revenge for. The inside of his display case is littered with apology notes people have sent to the museum, asking him to forgive them for whatever they did. So be careful, or you might be one of his next victims.